The key turned in the lock with a finality that echoed through the grand, empty house. I didn't need to look at the calendar to know the date. The end of August had loomed over me for months, a deadline set in stone by the man now stepping into the foyer. He didn't come alone. The sight of them was a physical blow. Beside my husband stood a young woman, her style flashy and painfully modern. Clutching her hand was a small boy, no older than 5, his eyes wide with the uncertainty of being in a strange place. A perfect, ready-made family, delivered to my doorstep. "You're still here," my husband stated, his voice cold and flat, devoid of any surprise. It was an accusation. "We had an agreement," I replied, my own voice steadier than I felt. "I said I would be gone when you returned. The month isn't over yet." He offered a thin, unpleasant grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Semantics. The point is, I'm back now, so let's not drag this out. The final task, hand over the signed divorce papers." His gaze then swept past me, landing on our son, Rufus, who had emerged from the kitchen, a silent observer to this grotesque tableau. The triumph in my husband's eyes was unmistakable. He believed he had already won, that we were merely obstacles to be cleared from his new life. He gestured vaguely toward the woman. "Let me introduce you. This is Vicki, my soon-to-be wife." Vicki offered a tight, embarrassed smile, her fingers tightening around the little boy's hand, pulling him slightly behind her as if to shield him from my gaze. The gesture, so instinctively maternal, was a fresh wound. "I've said it before," my husband continued, his tone hardening, "but you and I are strangers now. You no longer have any right to be in this house. Sign the papers, and you and your son get out." The words were meant to shatter me, to send me scurrying away in defeat. He stood there, chest puffed out, gleaming with his own perceived victory. He must have imagined this moment for months, his clueless, domesticated wife finally put in her place, but his triumphant posture lasted only a second. Instead of tears or pleas, a dry, incredulous laugh broke the tension. It came from Rufus. "Ha, Dad," Rufus said, shaking his head with a wisdom far beyond his 16 years. "You don't know anything. You never did." The smirk on my husband's face faltered, replaced by confusion. "What did you say to me?" "You heard him," I said, my earlier nervousness now solidified into cold resolve. "You've been so focused on your new life, on your meticulous plans to discard us, that you never stopped to look at what was happening in your old one." Rufus stepped forward, not with anger, but with a chilling calm. In his hand was a thick, bound book, a ledger of sorts, filled with more than just numbers. It was a record of every conversation, every financial arrangement, every notarized agreement we had painstakingly negotiated over the long, tense months of his absence. "How could you?" my husband muttered, his confidence finally cracking as the reality of the situation began to dawn on him. The carefully orchestrated surrender he expected was not coming. "I thought you were just a clueless housewife." Rufus didn't bother answering. He simply opened the book, holding it up like a shield and a weapon combined. The sight of it, of our preparation, of his own signatures and promises laid bare, seemed to drain the air from his lungs. The arrogant man who had marched in minutes before visibly slumped, the master of a game he suddenly realized he was no longer controlling. The battle for this house, for our future, was not over. It had only just begun, and he was finally understanding that he had drastically underestimated the wife and son he was so eager to leave behind. The air in the foyer grew thick and heavy, charged with the smug satisfaction radiating from my husband and the nervous energy of his new family. His nasty grin widened, a cruel slash across his face that I no longer recognized anymore. He said, the word a final, dismissive period at the end of our story. "Sign the divorce papers and get out of the house with your son." His gaze, filled with a gloating, triumphant light, swept over me and Rufus, expecting to see defeat. A slow, calm smile touched my lips. "So that's what it is, after all," I said, my voice even. Vicki, seeking to solidify their victory, chimed in with a simpering tone. "What's the matter with that? We already settled various agreements. All that's left is to submit the divorce papers, and it's decided that there won't be any divorce compensation either, right?" She glanced at my husband, her words clearly meant for him. "I'm relieved to hear that," I heard he gave you various things, so there's no need to feel guilty anymore. Gave me various things? I repeated, a note of icy amusement in my voice. He fulfilled his legal obligations, which I had to negotiate for relentlessly. But you're right about one thing. The notarized document is very clear, there will be no divorce compensation. A wave of visible relief washed over them. My husband puffed out his chest. That's right. I really wanted to have everything sorted out and the marriage registered by today. I'm sorry about that one point, Vicki, but at least we'll make it in time for Ethan's enrollment. Ethan. So that was the child's name. The final piece clicked into place. This frantic rush wasn't just about his new life. It was about legitimizing his son before the new school year began. I could understand a parent's desire, in the abstract, but the cruelty of his method extinguished any empathy. I understand the urge to enroll your child as a responsible parent, I said, my tone shifting from amusement to something steely. But that's a separate issue. As for the divorce compensation, I will be taking it. My husband's face contorted in confusion and anger. What? Have you lost your mind? The document states. I'll take it, I continued, speaking over him, for the relationship between that woman and your son, and of course, from that woman as well. Adultery compensation is a separate matter entirely from divorce compensation. Don't joke around. I won't pay a single cent for that, he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. Little Ethan flinched, burying his face in Vicky's legs. I assure you, this is no joke. I reached into my folder and produced another set of documents. You can claim compensation for adultery within 3 years of discovering the fact. And now that it's abundantly clear your original reason for divorce, our so-called natural separation, was a complete fabrication, the grounds for divorce compensation have also shifted dramatically. The real reason is standing right beside you. I let the words hang in the air, watching the color drain from both their faces. In cases of divorce by fraud or coercion, I said, reading directly from the text I'd prepared, the divorce itself can be annulled. We are not yet finalized. Therefore, I think the contents of our existing notarized documents can be revised. My husband's hand, still holding the divorce papers, began to tremble. So, I said, fixing him with a gaze that held no warmth, only resolve, let's discuss the divorce compensation again, properly. In that case, the deal for Rufus's tuition is off, he blurted out, desperate for leverage. That's impossible. It's a separate, binding agreement. You have no grounds to revoke it. Your argument wouldn't hold up for a second. He argued, he blustered, but his foundation was crumbling. Finally, he slammed his fist on the hall table, making everyone jump. Enough already. I get it. I'll pay. Just shut up about it. Thank you, I said, my smile broad and deliberate, designed to showcase every ounce of their frustration. What a greedy woman, he spat, venom in his eyes. But you'll pay, right? So, go ahead and pay. Sure, whatever, he snarled, snatching the signed papers from me. In fact, to prove it's over, I already submitted our application this morning. Here, he thrust a copy of the submission receipt at me, a final, petty act of control. Once we've got this, it's all ours as planned. He showed it to Vicki, and they shared a look of strained satisfaction. All right, then, the discussion's over, he declared, reverting to his dismissive tone. You don't have any reason to be here, so get out. Actually, I said, my voice dropping to a quiet, firm note that stopped him cold. It's you who should leave. Rufus and I have the right to stay. Don't talk nonsense. This is my house. Poor husband, I sighed, a genuine pang of pity for his ignorance cutting through my anger. You really don't know, do you? Let me inform you, whose name is on the title of this house? He scoffed. It's my father's, and what's his is mine. No, I said, the single word echoing in the sudden silence. It's in my name. For a moment, he was stunned. Then he erupted in derisive laughter. You think you have the right of residence and that makes it yours? I wouldn't make such a stupid mistake. If I divorce you, you're no longer related to my father. You lose any right to be here. I didn't argue. I simply handed him another document from my folder, a copy of the family register. His eyes scanned the page, his bravado crumbling into confusion, then dawning horror. What is this? This is absurd. It's very real. I was adopted by your father. He decided to leave this house to me. After he first mentioned divorce, I went to the one person who had always treated me as a daughter, my Phil. Furious at his son's behavior and grateful for my years of loyalty, had suggested the adoption himself. It was his way of protecting me and Rufus, and of disinheriting a son who had brought nothing but shame to the family. You wanted to work away from home just to live with her, didn't you? I pressed on, now the one in complete control. Vicki was a hostess when you met her. You led a double life, a sweet home for them and a camouflage apartment for us. You even installed cameras to alert you when we visited. Your father hired an investigator. He knows everything. The truth, laid bare so completely, was a physical blow. The arrogant man who had marched in minutes before seemed to shrink, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his own miscalculation. How could you do this? He muttered, almost to himself, his voice hollow. I thought you were just a housewife who didn't know anything. Rufus, who had been watching silently, let out a dry, incredulous laugh. Huh? Dad, you didn't know anything about Mom at all. He stepped forward and handed his father a book. What's this? The Splendid Deductions of Mrs. Rose. Oh, I know that one, Vicki said, her voice unexpectedly bright before she caught herself and fell silent. It's a popular novel, Rufus explained, a proud glint in his eye. About to be adapted into an anime. My mom wrote it. She studied a lot of law to make it authentic. The final layer of the illusion shattered. The clueless housewife he thought he was discarding was a successful, savvy author with a mind he had never bothered to know. The royalties? The anime deal? He stammered, a last, greedy flicker of hope. That's marital property. We need to divide it. Unfortunately, I said, my voice crisp and final. The divorce is already finalized. You have the receipt. Those earnings have nothing to do with you anymore. A strangled, guttural sound escaped his throat. That's a lie. Unbelievable, I said, shaking my head. After years of trying to deceive and belittle me, you suddenly see value in me? If you have any further issues, please consult your lawyer. Now, I said, opening the front door wide. Get out of my house. I watched them leave, a sorry procession of defeat. The reconciliation pleas he sent later were deleted unread. The threats about Ethan's recognition were handled by my lawyer. They eventually married, a union now burdened by debt and disgrace, and were transferred to a rural subsidiary after his company discovered he had misused company resources for his affair. The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. As for me, my series became a sensation. Rufus grew into a fine young man, determined to find his own path, and sometimes, watching him, I think of new stories, a cheeky college student protagonist. Perhaps, I have a feeling it will be a hit, too. My life was no longer defined by the housewife he left behind, but by the future I had built for myself. Page by page,